Streak Hoverboard Racing 2000. It was one of only 56 games to be compatible with the PlayStation Link cable, a peripheral that allowed for two consoles to be connected in order to play local multiplayer games on two separate consoles and television screens, thereby removing the need for split screen. This expense was impractical for most consumers, and by the end of 1997, most retailers were no longer carrying the PlayStation Link cable. Pong, The Next Level, 1999. The game actually features the original 1972 black and white version of Pong, unlocked by completing every level of the game. The world record for 100% completion is held by user Ripper TMUF, coming in at 2 hours, 19 minutes and 31 seconds. Delta Force Urban Warfare 2002. Delta Force was one of 3 first-person shooters released for the original PlayStation by Rebellion, the other 2 being Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six and its sequel Lone Wolf. Rainbow Six Lone Wolf bears a striking resemblance to Delta Force in its graphics, controls and gameplay. Rebellion software is still active and are known best by their Zombie Army and Sniper Elite series of games. Men in Black, the series, The Crashdown, 2001. Developer Runecraft is best known for creating the PS1 entries into the Spec Ops series of tactical third-person shooters, creating 4 in total. This game is one of only 2 PS1 games to be based off of the Men in Black IP, the other being Men in Black, the game from 1997. WRC FIA World Rally Championship Arcade 2002. This game is the only entry in the WR series of racing games to be released on the original PlayStation. It is based upon the 2002 season of World Rally Championship. It is also notable for being the last first-party racing game on the PS1, as it was published by Sony themselves. Brahma Force 1996. Brahma Force is the spiritual successor to the Kilek series of first-person shooters on the original PlayStation. Developer Genki is best known for its racing games, particularly the Tokyo Extreme Racer series.
Energy module secured.
Digimon World 1999. North American copies of Digimon World came with their own promotional Digimon trading card. Metal Greymon, DW01, is one of the rarer Digimon cards, with only 100,000 ever being released. Shanghai True Valour 1999. Shanghai True Valour is one of only 106 titles that supported the PlayStation Mouse peripheral. For context, out of the alleged 8,000 plus titles in the PS1 library, roughly only 1% supported the mouse. Tetris Plus 1996. Tetris Plus is the 5th console generation debut for the franchise and also saw ports to the Sega Saturn and Nintendo Game Boy. According to Wikipedia, Tetris Plus is the 50th best-selling PS1 game of all time, with reported sales of over 1.7 million units. Xena Warrior Princess 1999. Universal Digital Arts created several new characters specifically for the game, including Calibrax and the Amazon Bird Women. Universal also created over 100 different animations for the character of Xena to ensure smooth movements within the game. In addition, the faces of the television show's actresses Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor were texture mapped into the game. Anna Kournikovas Smash Court Tennis 1998. This title is actually a sequel to Namco's Smash Court from 1996 and was released in Japan as Smash Court 2. To this day, it remains the only video game that was endorsed by Anna Kournikova. Area 51, 1996. Despite the arcade version running on a modified Atari Jaguar, Area 51 was never ported onto the system itself. According to Atari Games, by the time of Area 51's release, the company no longer saw the Jaguar as a viable platform. Army Men Air Attack 1999. Army Men Air Attack is the fifth game in the Army Men series. The game's lead programmer, Simon Everett, would go on to work for EA on such key franchises as Battlefield, Need for Speed, and Dead Space. Beast Wars Transformers 1997. This game was featured in the first episode of the Animorphs television series, based on the short-lived toy line by Hasbro. The main characters are seen playing an arcade game that appropriates footage from Beast Wars and even pairs it with narration that was absent from the original game. Blazing Dragons 1996. The game was first announced under the title Dragons of the Square Table in 1995 and was originally slated for release later that year. It was later redesigned to be based on the Canadian television series of the same name and was released for the PlayStation and Sega Saturn consoles in late 1996. The writing and humour in the game is heavily influenced by Monty Python, with Terry Jones serving as one of the game's many voice actors. Brian Lara Cricket, 1998. The Australian release of this game featured the likeness of Shane Warne, regarded as one of the sport's greatest bowlers, at one time holding the record for the most wickets taken in Test cricket. Covert Ops Nuclear Dawn, 2000. Sugar and Rockets was a second-party development and production house owned by Sony themselves, best known for the puzzle game Intelligent Cube. Soon after the release of this game, they were merged into Japan Studio, who produced titles such as Legend of Dragoon and Ape Escape. Buster Bros Collection, 1997. The Buster Bros Collection remains the only compilation released for the franchise, featuring near-arcade perfect ports of Buster Bros, Super Buster Bros, and Buster Buddies. Gaia Seed, 1996. The game was first released outside of Japan on September 21st, 2010 as a digital download for the PlayStation Network. The game was released with no language localization or translation. Publisher at the time, Monkey Paw Games, cited the cost of translation as a barrier to releasing games outside of Japan. Double Dragon, 1996. This game was loosely based on the 1994 movie adaptation of the Double Dragon franchise. The game was initially meant to have a sequel, but was then changed during production to become Rage of the Dragons. In the Hunt, 1995. The developers of In the Hunt would later go on to found Nascar Corporation, the creators of the Metal Slug series. In 2019, Hamster Corporation digitally re-released In the Hunt for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4, published under their Arcade Archives series. LMA Manager, 1999. Unlike other console football management games at the time, which were ports of existing PC titles, LMA Manager was designed exclusively for the PlayStation. LMA Manager was the first entry in a series that would feature 13 titles, the most recent being LMA Manager 2008, released for mobile. Mad Stalker, Full Metal Force, 1997. Mad Stalker was initially released for PC and several fourth-generation consoles in 1994 before being remastered for the PlayStation. New features included 3D assets, redrawn sprites, and a rearranged soundtrack. MTV Skateboarding 2000. MTV Skateboarding was one of only 7 games released on the original PlayStation that featured the MTV license. The game was a runner-up for GameSpot's Worst Game of the Year award, losing out to Spirit of Speed 1937 for Sega Dreamcast. N2O, 1998. N2O features a soundtrack composed by the American electronic music duo The Crystal Method. The soundtrack was heavily used to promote the game, and the music was stored in Red Book format, meaning the game disc could be played on a music CD on an ordinary CD player. Kurt Warner's Arena Football 2000. This game is only one of 5 ever released on the subject of indoor American football, where the rules are adjusted to accommodate matches in smaller venues. The most recent American arena football game to be released is Arena Football Road to Glory, released for the PS2 in 2007. NASCAR Rumble 2000. NASCAR Rumble is a departure from other games featuring the NASCAR license by being a Mario Kart tangent, complete with power-ups and fantastical tracks. A non-NASCAR licensed sequel was made for the PS2 by the same developer called Rumble Racing, released in 2001. MTV Sports BMX 2001. The developer of this game, Blue Shift, was later acquired by Visual Concepts Entertainment, who were then acquired by Take-Two Interactive in 2005 and now exist as Take-Two's Vancouver studio. MTV Sports BMX, along with the Game Boy Color port, remain the only games to feature the likeness of BMX rider TJ Lavin. NHL Rock the Rink 2000. Rock the Rink was released only 12 days after the Japanese release date of the PlayStation 2. It would be the last National Hockey League game to be released exclusively for the original PlayStation, as the next entry, NHL 2001, would receive ports for both the PS1 and the PS2. Panzer Bandit 1997. The character of Jingoro in Panzer Bandit was voiced by Kenji Noruma, his first of 82 credits for video game voice work, the most recent being part of the Japanese translation for 2021's Deathloop. Panzer Front 1999. Developer Enterbrain is primarily a publishing company that focuses on the otaku market, with the majority of their publications focusing on manga and video games. Panzer Front is the only 3D game Enterbrain produced, with the other 3 being 2D dating sims. Porsche Challenge 1997. Development on Porsche Challenge began in 1995. The license agreement with Porsche allowed the game designers to work with Porsche employees in order to accurately model the then brand new Boxster's appearance and performance. On top of accurate modeling of the cars, each of the 6 drivers were individually motion captured to create their own distinctive animations. Premier Manager 98, 1998. Premier Manager 98 was the first game in the Premier Manager series to be released on the original PlayStation. The last Premier Manager game on the PS1 would be Premier Manager 2000. Project Overkill, 1996. Project Overkill was the first game produced by Konami's short-lived Chicago division. Lasting only 4 years, they would produce only 8 games, including a port of Konami's light gun series Lethal Enforcers and Marvel's Spawn for the Game Boy Color. Ranma 1.5 Battle Resistance, 1996. Japan exclusive Battle Resistance is the only PS1 game to be based on the Ranma 1.5 manga series, written and illustrated by Rumiko Takahashi. Both the manga and anime are cited as among the first in their respective media to have become popular in the United States. Rapid Racer, 1997. The soundtrack for the PAL version of Rapid Racer was composed by Apollo 440, best known for their remixes of classic film and television music, such as the themes to Lost in Space and Charlie's Angels. Rapid Reload, 1995. Rapid Reload was only the 4th ever game to be released on the PS1 in Europe. The game did not receive a release in North America, reportedly due to Sony Computer Entertainment of America's policy against releasing 2D games for the PlayStation at the time. Real Fishin', 1996. Real Fishin', known as Fish Eyes in Japan, is the first entry in the Real Fishin' series, which now features 15 titles, the most recently released being Real Fishin' Road Trip Adventure in 2019. Roadsters, 2000. Roadsters was originally a Nintendo 64 game developed by Titus Software, which was ported to the PS1 by Smart Dog. It features unlicensed cars from imaginary manufacturers based on real-life models, in addition to cars from actual car manufacturers, including Renault and Lotus. Zanac X Zanac, 2001. The game was a compilation title of the Zanac video game series, released to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the 1986 original. This compilation features an updated version of Zanac titled Zanac Neo, and 3 versions of the NES version of the game, including a version featuring enhanced graphics and sound. The Italian Job, 2001. The game was developed by Pixel Logic in conjunction with Original Technology, which allowed designers to plan and design the vast environments required for efficiently recreating complex scenes from the film, most notably the iconic mini getaway sequence. The lead protagonist of the game, Charlie Croker, was voiced by impressionist Phil Cornwell, who is best known for playing DJ Dave Clifton in the BBC sitcom series I'm Alan Partridge. Sonic Wings Special, 1996. Sonic Wings Special is an updated version of the 1992 arcade game Aero Fighters. It combined features from all 3 games in the Sonic Wings franchise and ran on a Sony ZN1 Jammer board. The PlayStation version had improved music and sound and allowed saving the game for more than once per round. However, the PAL version did not support this save feature. Shadow Madness, 1999. The art department for Shadow Madness was led by Annabella Serra, who previously worked at Industrial Light and Magic and helped create the CGI visual effects on Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The game was a console exclusive for the PlayStation up until the 15th of February 2022, when publishers Pico Interactive and Bleem released a version for Windows via Steam. Rogue Trip, 2012, 1998. Rogue Trip utilized an overhauled version of the game engine found in the first two Twisted Metal titles, sharing many of their design elements. In addition to some original music, GT Interactive signed a deal with Mercury Records to feature the songs The Rascal King by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and Snake Eyes by Nashville Pussy. Publisher GT Interactive also backed its launch with a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign comprising a television spot, online and print advertisements, as well as a cross-promotion with apparel companies. Sensible Soccer 1998. Sensible Soccer 1998 European Soccer Edition was the only PS1 entry in the much-beloved Sensible Soccer franchise and retained its signature zoomed-out bird's-eye view. The game was also produced by the same developers, Sensible Software. Chocobo's Dungeon 2, 1998. Chocobo's Dungeon 2 became the first Mystery Dungeon title released outside of Japan. Mystery Dungeon is a series of rogue-like role-playing video games, most famous for its Pokemon Mystery Dungeon spin-off titles. A version of the game was planned for Bandai's short-lived handheld console, the WonderSwan Color, but was never released. Creature Shock 1996. A port of Creature Shock for the Atari Jaguar CD was announced in 1994 as one of the first upcoming titles for the add-on, and was also planned to be published by Virgin Interactive. The port was cancelled after the poor reception of a video demo showcased at the Autumn European Computer Trade Show in 1995, as well as due to several delays in production. Wing Commander 3, 1996. At the time of its release, Wing Commander 3 was the most expensive video game ever made, the final cost coming in at approximately $3 million. It was dethroned by its sequel, The Price of Freedom, which came in at $10 million. For context, when adjusted for inflation, the budget of Wing Commander 4 is equal to that of Star Wars A New Hope. Raystorm, 1997. Although there is no story connection, it is often thought of as the spiritual successor to 1994's Galactic Attack on the Sega Saturn, which had similar gameplay. Co-directors of Galactic Attack, Yukio Abe, Tatsuo Nakamura, music composer Tomohiro Kawamoto, and sound effect composer Runihiro Nakanishi all had the same roles when developing Ray Force. Street Skater 1999. The head of Street Skater's sound department was Toshiyuki Kakuta, who would go on to work for Konami, working on several Metal Gear Solid games and most notably providing the soundtrack for both games in Hideo Kojima's Zone of the Enders series. Lomax, 1996. The Adventures of Lomax was a reskin of 1994's Flink, co-created by Henk Nielborg, who gained credits as level designer and graphic designer on Lomax. The game was redesigned to become a spin-off game for publisher Psygnosis's then popular Lemmings franchise. Ultraman Fighting Evolution, 1998. Ultraman Fighting Evolution was one of only two PS1 games featuring the Ultraman license. The second game was the Space Invaders tangent PD Ultraman Invaders from 1995. Fighting Evolution spawned a series of Ultraman fighting games, the most recent being Ultraman Fighting Evolution 0 from 2006. Vanguard Bandits, 1998. The US release was originally titled Detonator Gauntlet, but this was changed due to pressure from Midway over the rights to the word Gauntlet, due to Midway's Gauntlet series of video games. Developer Human Entertainment was the studio where cult figure Suda51 began his career, his first ever credit being part of the debug team for 1994's Taekwondo. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, 1999. The game is based on Jeff Wayne's 1978 musical adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel. Jeff Wayne himself produced the musical arrangements that feature in the game, consisting of 45 minutes of material rescored and remixed in a newer electronica style with techno beats. Blast Chamber, 1996. In the late 80s, the game's developer Attention to Detail Limited was heavily involved in the unreleased Konix multi-system 16-bit console, developing its SDK and several demos, as well as working on a 3D action game called Tunnels of Doom. Power Spike Pro Beach Volleyball, 2000. Power Spike Pro Beach Volleyball is one of only 2 video games to be officially licensed by the international governing body for all forms of volleyball, the FIVB. The other game is Women's Volleyball Championship, released for the PS2 in 2007. Rhapsody, 1998. After deciding that the game should contain musical elements, producer Sohei Nikawa recruited Tenpai Saito to write the music in May of 1998. Having composed and performed musicals in the past, Saito composed the game's musical numbers. Rhapsody would be Saito's first collaboration with Nippon Ichi Software, a relationship that lasts to this day, with Saito providing the soundtrack for Nippon's popular Disgaea series. K1, the Arena Fighters, 1996. K1 refers to the professional kickboxing promotion established in 1993. The Arena Fighters was the first game to be officially licensed by the promotion. Psychic Force, 1996. A spin-off puzzle game similar in style to Taito's own Puzzle Bobble, known as Psychic Force Puzzle Tyson, was released on October 2nd, 1997 for the original PlayStation in Japan only. Digimon Rumble Arena, 2001. Rumble Arena was the only Digimon game to be produced by Bomberman creators Hudson Soft. A sequel, Digimon Rumble Arena 2, was released in 2004, while a spiritual successor to the first 2 installments, Digimon All-Star Rumble, was released in 2014. Twin Goddesses, 1994. Twin Goddesses is the first fighting game ever to be released on the original PlayStation. This accolade is often miscredited to Battle Arena Toshinden, which was released 10 days after Twin Goddesses. CT Special Forces, 2003. CT Special Forces was originally a Game Boy Advance title released in 2001. The game would release 3 sequels, with the third game in the series, subtitled Bioterror, being one of the very last PAL region games on the original PlayStation, with a release date of December 14th, 2004. Battle Stations, 1997. Real-Time Associates were the second ever American studio to release a game for the Sega Saturn, the first being Tenjin with 1994's Tama. Real-Time Associates, however, were the first American studio to have a game released on the Sega Saturn in North America, that being their 1995 platformer Bug. Rush Hour 1997. Rush Hour supported the PlayStation Analog Joystick, a precursor to the dual analog controller. Coincidentally, Rush Hour was released in Japan 4 days after the dual analog controller, but does not support it. However, it did support the Namco Negcon, a motion-based controller that used a swivel joint instead of thumbsticks. Ray Tracers 1997. Ray Tracers shares many similarities with the 80s arcade hit Chase HQ, also produced by Taito, including the enemy vehicle having to be rammed a number of times until they are forced to stop. It can be in many ways considered a spiritual successor to Chase HQ. Assault Retribution 1998. Assault was the sole game developed by Candlelight Studios, a development forged from a team of ex-Accolade designers who had worked on the futuristic combat sports title Pitball for the PS1 in 1996. Accolade is best known for the Bubsy series of platforming games. In the lead-up to the release, Assault Retribution was proclaimed a Contra killer by PlayStation Magazine. One-on-One Single Basketball 1998. Published and developed by Jorhudan. The character design and story concept for this game was done by Takehiko Inui, who was behind manga such as Slam Dunk and Vagabond. The game was re-released in May of 2000 as part of the infamous Simple 1500 series. Swag Man 1997. Developer Core Design created the original Tomb Raider as well as the short-lived Fighting Force series on the PlayStation. Versions of Swagman for the Sega 32X and Atari Jaguar CD were announced at one time, but were never released. Dragstars 2000. Developer Jamco, or Junk Art Movement, was headed and founded by rock guitarist Katsuhiko Sugiyama. Dragstars remains their sole video game production. It was initially given a budget release in Japan under the name Burnout, before being distributed in Europe by Midas. Dukes of Hazzard Racing for Home 1999. Based on the 1970s TV series, Waylon Jennings, James Best, Ben Jones, Sonny Schroyer, and Tom Wopat reprised their characters by providing their voices to the PC and PlayStation versions of the game. A port for the Game Boy Color was released the following year. M&Ms Shellshocked 2001. This game is a port of a 2000 PC platformer called M&M's The Lost Formulas, which was the first video game to feature the M&M license. An educational minigame from the PC version was removed and instead replaced by boss battles at the end of each level. Prince Nazim Boxing 2000. The game was released under the title Mike Tyson Boxing in the North American region. Despite being released 6 years into the lifespan of the original PlayStation, the serial number for Prince Nazim Boxing is SLES 00017, suggesting a much earlier release date. Austin Powers Pinball 2002. Austin Powers Pinball is one of only 4 video games featuring the Austin Powers license, and the only Austin Powers game to feature on the original PlayStation. It is just one of 17 pinball games that were released on the console. Puzznic 2001. Uznik is a remake of Taito's tile-matching arcade puzzle game of the same name from 1989. The game's developer, Ultron Corporation, have been active since 1983, with their most recent game being Twin Card for mobile in 2019. Trickin' Snowboarder, 1999. The game is a follow-up to developer Cave's Steep Slope Sliders from 1997, released initially for the arcade and Sega Saturn. The game features unlockable characters from publisher Capcom's Resident Evil 2, which are accessible by pressing triangle, triangle, X, X, square, circle, square, circle at the title screen. Superstar Dance Club, 2001. Superstar Dance Club was originally released in Japan with the title Love Power, Lovely Tokyo Power Power Mazumi under the Simple 1500 series. It was made to capitalize on the Power Power synchronized dance craze, which originated in upper-class Japanese discos in the late 1980s and was going through its third boom by the time of the game's release. Tunguska, Legend of Faith, 2000. The game's title is most likely a reference to the Tunguska River basin in Siberia, where on June 30th, 1908, the nearby forest area was devastated by the impact of an unknown object. Various theories have been proposed to explain this event, such as a fallen meteorite, asteroid, or even a crashed spaceship. The impact flattened over 80 million trees and is considered the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history. Ronaldo V Football, 2000. The main theme for Ronaldo V Football was Samba di Janeiro by Bellini, a dance remix of Bello Horizonte by the Heartists. Ronaldo V Football remains the only video game to feature the endorsement of football legend Ronaldo Nazário de Lima. The game received a Game Boy Color release a year prior to the release of the PS1 version. Crisis Beat, 1998. Crisis Beat remained a Japanese exclusive until publisher Studio 3 released a PAL version of the game in 2000. It is one of only 36 beat-em-ups ever to be released for the original PlayStation. Landmaker, 1999. Developer Taito was founded by Russian Jewish businessman Michael Kogan and was the first company to produce vodka in Japan. In 1978, Taito employee Tomohiro Nishikado created Space Invaders, which became the company's most popular title and one of the most popular games in arcade history, partially responsible for beginning the golden age of arcade video games. Land Before Time Racing Adventure, 2001. The game is one of 8 on-foot racing games released for the original PlayStation, with other entries including Running Wild and Rayman Rush. Despite having 4 playable characters, the game does not support the multi-tap preferential, meaning multiplayer is restricted to 2 opponents. One Piece Mansion, 2001. Character designer for the game, Rin Kususaga, would go on to create art for several visual novels, most notably his work for Type Moon, creating several characters for the popular Fate series of visual novels. Starfighter San Veen, 2000. The world record for completing Starfighter San Veen as of January 2023 is held by user Joester98 with a completion time of 11 minutes, 28 seconds and 9 milliseconds. Developer Success Corp have been active since 1978, with their most recent title being a 2022 compilation of the Touch Detective point-and-click series of games. Moto Racer, 1997. The game was originally to be published by BMG Interactive, but after BMG closed down its US operations, it sold the publication rights to Electronic Arts. Moto Racer was named the best driving game of the year in PS Extreme Magazine's 1997 Extreme Awards. In 2011, Little World Studio released a remake called Moto Racer 15th Anniversary for iOS and Microsoft Windows. Hybrid, 1997. Despite being developed by a British-based studio, Hybrid initially had a Japan-only release. It would remain that way for 4 years, until Hybrid was released in 2001 by Midas Interactive under their pocket price lineup of budget releases. Fluid, 1996. The game's concept is an interactive sound lab which allows the player to create dance and electronic music by controlling a dolphin character in the cruise stage to collect samples for mixing in the groove editor. This dolphin can be turned into the color gold by highlighting Start in the title menu and pressing down, up, right, left, and square. Peak Performance, 1997. There are a lot of differences between Peak Performance and its Japanese release, Tube Max Zaizuku Drift Master. These include licensed cars, additional racetracks, as well as a removed story mode, a feature which would come to define the Tube Max series back in Japan. Sorcerer's Maze, 2003. The game was originally known as Prism Land Story, released in Japan on March 18, 1998. It was first released outside of Japan by Midas Interactive in 2001 under the title Prism Land. Most likely due to the success of the first 2 Harry Potter films, the game was re-released by Excess Games under the title Sorcerer's Maze. 10 Pin Alley, 1996. Several developers who worked on 10 Pin Alley would go on to have successful careers in the video game industry, working for companies such as EA, Rockstar, and Blizzard. The most notable is Ofer Estline, with several producer credits on games such as Overwatch, Darksiders 2, and 007 Nightfire. His most recent credit is as a producer on World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. The game's sequel, 10 Pin Alley 2, was released twice in the forthcoming years. First, for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, the second being for the Nintendo Wii in 2008. Scars, 1998. The title of this Mario Kart clone, Scars, is an abbreviation for Super Computer Animal Racing Simulation and features 9 tracks and cars, all of which can be unlocked by entering the code ALLVID into the options menu. The world record for completing the Grand Prix is 1 hour, 38 minutes and 23 seconds and is held by the user Dark Horse. Test Drive Off-Road, 1997. The game's soundtrack includes 3 remixes of songs by Gravity Kills, which include Blame, Enough, and Guilty. Gravity Kills was an American industrial rock band from St. Louis, Missouri, formed in 1994. They have also been featured on the soundtracks for Mortal Kombat, 7, and Escape from LA. Demolition Racer, 1999. The majority of the developers for Demolition Racer had worked previously for Reflections, the development studio behind the respective Driver and Destruction Derby series of games. Programmer Michael Troughton is credited to have created the original concept for 1995's Destruction Derby. Pitbull Syndicate's logo, consisting of a bulldog against a black and white background, has been listed as a white supremacist extremist symbol by the Anti-Defamation League. This is due to several neo-Nazi groups appropriating the logo, most notably the Keystone United Skinhead Group, one of the most active racist skinhead crews in the United States according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Die Hard Trilogy 2, 2000. Publisher Fox Interactive approached Picture House, a development studio which included key members of the team behind the original Die Hard trilogy, to develop the sequel. Weary of the Die Hard franchise, Picture House turned down the offer in favor of working on Terracon, a sci-fi action game that was released on the PS1 in 2000. Gallop Racer 3, 1999. Gallop Racer 3 was the first entry in Tecmo's Gallop Racer Arcade series to receive a North American release. Due to lack of brand awareness, the game was retitled simply as Gallop Racer. Grid Runner, 1996. Grid Racer was Radical Entertainment's debut on the original PlayStation. The company would go on to find success with several open-world games such as Scarface, Simpsons Hit and Run, and the Prototype series, before parent company Activision Blizzard ceased all original development within the studio in 2012. Herc's Adventures, 1997. Herc's Adventures was originally announced as a Sega Saturn exclusive with a release date of December 1996, but delays pushed its release back to July of 1997. The PlayStation version was released internationally, while the Saturn version was exclusive to North America. Virgin Interactive had planned to release the Saturn version in Europe in September of 1997, but it was dropped from the release schedule as part of Virgin's withdrawal of support for the Saturn. Inuyasha, a Feudal Fairy Tale, 2002. The development studio was started by Takeshi Nishiyama, a former employee at both Capcom and SNK. Nishiyama is credited as the director of the original Street Fighter from 1987, as well as a producer of several games in the King of Fighters series. Luna Silver Star Story, 1998. Silver Star Story was initially released in North America in May of 1999 as a limited collector's edition which included 2 game discs, a hard-bound instruction manual, a soundtrack CD, a making-of CD, and a cloth map of the lunar world. The package initially retailed for $60 to cover the cost of the elaborate extras, which, if adjusted for inflation, would be $108 as of 2023. Publisher Working Designs even voluntarily ceased shipments of the game in December of the same year, thereby turning the North American release into an instant collector's item. Monopoly, 1997. Monopoly on the original PlayStation supported a variety of custom rules. These included popular house rules like collecting fines on free parking, double bonus on Go, and having to go around the board once before starting purchasing. Standard rules like auctions, the even build rule, or dealing from jail can be turned off. It is also possible to set the number of buildings in the bank to infinite. Various rules that vary in regional editions of the board game can be toggled as well, including higher luxury tax or the option of paying 10% income tax instead of a flat fee. Muppet Monster Adventure, 2000. Muppet Monster Adventure features several similarities to Spyro the Dragon, including sharing a sound designer in Michael Gollum. It is one of only 2 PS1 games featuring the Muppets license, the other being the Mario Kart variant, Muppet Racermania.
Nosferatu I'm Jule pieces, and you'll be a flying frog in no time, okay?